We are talking about characters, and the characters are a really big part of this game.
What is a character?
Characters are, it's the character that you have in front of you. It's who you are. It's your miniature. It's what you look like. It's what you're doing. It's a lot of different components together. So why don't you run through a little bit about, what is, just in gameplay, what does your character kind of determine for your experience?
So I guess it's like two parts, right? So like your character is like how you interact with the world and the mechanisms in the world, and then there's the actual character's personal goals and journey through the game. So there's
we'll circle back to that story stuff because that's a whole different.
Sure. So am I talking about the mechanical stuff?
Yeah, let's do it.
So like mechanically, there's a lot going on in this game, and the interesting thing, the thing that I find interesting, and that I was very resistant against in the beginning, the early, is there's a lot of like a sort of textured. There's like a lot of textured touchstones in the game, so it's the best way. Like when I do the pitch in the demos, is I say stuff doesn't matter until it does, right? So like this little green thing here is called Fungalite, and it just lowers your hit points. And then there's an entire character who's like focused around this, and like to this character, this is like the biggest, scariest, craziest thing. It's the core of her story. But to everyone else, it's just like a nuisance. Like, oh crap, like I have less hit points. I have less vitality in the game. So every character kind of like wants to focus on a different thing. Like there's a thing in the game called boosts. Boosts just let you move extra spaces. This character is completely focused on that. This character is like running around trying to accomplish a lot of really crazy stuff in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And so they need these boosts as kind of like to provide their engine, but it also kind of represents narratively like their drive to do this impossibly giant task.
I
right?
remember, when we were coming up with character concepts and like the mechanical kits for these characters, we had this phrase that we use like in dev, like if your 9-year-old nephew was talking to you about Minecraft, like how would he
Boost guy.
This is Boost guy, right?
Fungus lady.
Yeah. So
Robot man.
We wanted every one of these characters to be like able to be summarized by your 9-year-old nephew, right?
Yeah.
But like also like with enough like depth and interesting stuff going on that they feel like super, dynamic, right? So like what are the components of that kit? Like you had your Fungalite, like your focus, but like what does that mean for Melicant?
So like you have your primary starting talent, right? So you have like an ability. You have this thing called your legend loop, and your legend loop is effectively just like a little track with some like candies on it, but they're relevant to your character. They're like let your character do things that your character wants to do and should do throughout the game.
Right, and you get legend just by like doing remarkable things in this world. Like it's just if you overcome some kind of challenge, it's like advance your legend tracker a couple spaces.
You complete a job for a faction,
right?
Like
and then your character board tells you what it is that's unique to your character that you unlock by doing that. And it loops around and just
and most of the time it works like this. Like I gain a legend, I gain a legend. Wait, what? Like then you do this thing, and then there's a relationship between the story and how you advance in the story, which is one of the main ways you're going to win in the game. Mm-hmm. And then there's also the relationship between the loop, because if you score points when you reach the end of your loop and you restart your loop, equal to the chapter that you're in, and there's 3 chapters in the game, right? So
it's like a legend loop. What else? You have your gear cards too.
You have your gear cards. So everybody here,
get out of here.
Gambit. So everybody here has like a generic card called Omni Kit. It's just like this like little utility pack. It's like anytime you roll dice in the game, which is like the fun part of the game, you should be. You use this, but then there's this card, which is
your signature gear, and every character has their own unique gear card, right?
Yeah.
So the this one, for example, you see Melicantha and Ib. This is a character, and her miniature has like this big hyena wolf creature, and that's this card. It's this is your companion. The signature gear card that you have is like it just kind of fuels your own personal synergies and combos and stuff like that, right? And you also have your talent, which is a kind of a built-in part of your board. That is just like an ongoing passive ability. So you have like a multiple components of your mechanical kit, but again, it's all like really easy to understand, like at the concept level. Fungus lady.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, but like, what does that fungus mean? Why does she care about the fungus? Like, how does she interact with that? So to all the other characters, this stuff is just this kind of obnoxious little like reductive mechanism. But for her, she actually like uses it to her advantage. She has this really kind of like a little menu of superpowers when she would gain this, and she actually gives it to herself. But the drawback is once she uses up all those superpowers, then one of those things comes over here and kind of like it comes over here and it comes over here, and then it this here off camera. Hard cut, top camera wasn't on. you didn't see anything. So we're going to go now to this, and we're going to show you, here's this character. So she would gain this fungolite, which is normally just this kind of reductive mechanism. She puts it here, she fills this up, and then it'll move over here. So she has the ability to kind of gain a lot of this stuff. She actually inflicts it on herself, which is tied to her story, and then moves it over here, where the other characters just get it, and they're kind of sad, right?
She's a biofilter.
Yeah, she's got a biofilter.
Yeah,
that's the word.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why don't we talk a little bit about the actual, like, some of the characters? So we have 6 characters in the starting and the core game, the basic game, and they're pretty different, right? So let's talk about
super different, right? Yeah. Like the 6 characters we have, they're the characters you'll see on the cover. We have some more planned that we're not going to talk about yet, but
it might be double the amount of characters in the base game.
Right. Yeah. And every character kit, like we said, it comes with the mechanical stuff, but it's also like a lot of narrative stuff as well. So every like to build a character, you got to have your gear card, you got to have your board, you got to have a couple little things here, but you also need like a deck of story cards, a deck of feat cards, and also like several entries in the story guide. Like by several, I mean like a lot. so we have like a lot of these components. So the story is another really big component there. So Mihealsick, for example, she's a traveler from another dimension, right? She is here on this world because she has just been traveling from universe to universe, trying to stop this fungolite. And in every world that she's seen, it's eventually evolved and grown and kind of consumed the entire galaxy, right? And she's here. This is like her 11th attempt, and now she's trying to save this world. Right, that's a pretty bleak storyline, right?
No, but it's also kind of hopeful, right? Like she's still trying. She has her and her friend are kind of traversing through time and space to try to do this thing to stop this inevitability, right? And like, if you don't have this character, the thing I think is really neat about this character is if this character is not in the game, the fungolite is just this kind of like footnote in the game, right? Oh, like there's this weird mold thing that gets on you and makes you sick.
Like
this character comes in and starts to tell you like, hey, this stuff is going to make an evolutionary leap, and it's going to consume organic material, inorganic material, energy, information, everything will be fungolite by the end, right? Everything. Spoilers. So that's what I think is really neat. She adds like not only a mechanical texture, but a narrative texture to this little token in the game, right?
And the story itself, like it branches. So you start off on your little story deck. You have your different chapters, and this is different characters' cards. But you have your chapter 1, and you always start on the same chapter 1, but then once you complete your current objective, you're going to proceed to an entry in the story guide. Somebody else will read this to you. They'll give you a branching choice, and they'll tell you like what the result of your efforts was in your first chapter, and then it'll kind of give you 2 different ways you can go there. And that's going to give you an option whether you want to go to chapter 2A or 2B, right? So again, it branches, and every time you make a choice in this world, something permanently changes about the game. Not from session to session, but within that one session. And those changes get weird. Like, what's your favorite one? No spoiler. I'm trying to like limit the spoilers, but like of all the
Zoda and Grash like becoming specialized components that would normally not like that players interact with like all the time. Like I think that was brilliant. Like really, really, really cool.
Yeah, like you make a certain choice in the story, and then like one of the characters just becomes we don't want to spoil or anything, but it becomes like one of the other components, and like those 2 identities are kind of meshed. Like you're still your character, but also like you're this other thing as well, and like it just you also serve this other function in the game.
Yeah.
And it's just like, wait, you can do that?
Yeah, that's like one of my favorite things about the game. And I like the high five to you. Like a massive amount of credit is like you found really interesting ways to use we have multitudinous components, but you found really interesting ways to use those components and repurpose them with regard to narrative that made them like actually feel like the things that they're supposed to feel like. And like this game isn't so like this character has a really bleak story. One thing that Mike did a really good job was he like infused a lot of feelings of humor and also of kind of like real moments, like vulnerable moments in the game. It's not just like I'm sad, I'm mad, and I want to fight something. There's like desperation. There's like hope. There's overcoming obstacles. There's people coming together to do impossible things. There's people with insurmountable challenges that, despite the odds, are willing to risk life and limb. And this crazy difficult and savage world that we've created to just do the right thing, which I think is like kind of beautiful and awesome. But let's talk really quickly. Let's just talk about the other characters. What do you think?
Yeah.
You want me to talk about a character?
Yeah, do it. What's your favorite character?
Solsirium Quill.
That was my answer.
Well, so
I don't know, maybe Mandarax, but I don't know.
So I put together the concepts for all the characters, but Mike, like, so this character originally was like, I want David Bowie as a goat man, like David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust, David Bowie as a goat man / celebrity, and so you took that idea to this like really hilarious place where he's kind of this like reality TV star, kind of like a Bear Grylls, like he's like a tough guy, but also like he's just a person, right? So he's got a crew of people, this little robot that assists him in the game, that kind of is like his social media robot, effectively, like it's like his like a little living, inorganic living Facebook account, if you will, or like live social media feed. And so this guy's like running around trying to be tough, but like he's got like a lot of support and money to make sure that like he's going to look tough no matter what. And he's kind of maybe a little bit buying into his own hype and his own story.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of
that's just where he starts too, because like again, you make those choices along your branching narrative. Chapter 1, this is who he is. He's just this reality TV star, right? But then like you have your choice, and you can maybe choose to continue down that path, or you can choose to kind of branch off a little bit. And then there's a third chapter where again you have more options and more kind of impact on the world. So
there's even funny things like he has access to money more than anyone else.
Right.
But he can also use the money, which kind of represents like the production crew that's kind of running around in the background, like helping him do things where other people don't have that assistance. Mm. So it makes him a pretty interesting guy. Yeah. I think
there are not a lot of other games where you can play an augmented reality TV star with a sentient Facebook account as your partner.
Yeah. I mean, and then there's just kind of like basic stuff, like Grash, like is like a touchstone, like a tanky, big, fighty barbarian character. She's like a female reptilian. She's like kind of like a lizard centaur who's got like gorilla paws for front legs, and then one of her hands looks like the ghost trap from Ghostbusters. She's super, and the Predator, like she's just crazy. But she like, I really like the story for her. She's just this badass. She's not lost a fight in hundreds or thousands of years, and so she's taken all this wealth and success, and she's just traveling the galaxy trying to feel fear again. She wants someone to beat her. She doesn't want to be the best. She wants to know. She wants to be knocked down a peg. She wants to not be the most undefeatable, indomitable like force, physical force in the galaxy. So she's come to this place because she thinks it's a savage place where she will find something that can finally best her. I think that's such a cool idea.
Yeah, and like all these characters, I mean, these characters are weird and wild. Like, I mean, obviously we've described a couple of them, but they all came out of Travis's imagination. And I remember reading through the concepts at first, and I'm like, this is something else.
Well, a lot of these things for me started with, when we were talking to Bryce. I got to give a lot of credit to Bryce, because Bryce pushed me to push past some of the basic notions of a concept, and like, who are these people? Why are these people here? Like, what kind of world? What are they eating? What are they drinking? Things like that.
Bryce is our sculptor, and he also works with game trees, so he's worked on a lot of the trees and the plastic sculptures.
But he was instrumental in the early part of that concepting. That the reason that doc had like another 15 pages was because Bryce pushed me. Like, what do the weapons look like? Why are the weapons this way? Are they energy weapons? Are they ballistic weapons? He asked me a lot of questions that I didn't even consider. I just kind of threw up a bunch of ideas, and I was like, oh, this was enough, and it wasn't. So where I started with a lot of these characters was I wanted something that was like physically different looking, because we knew we were gonna have miniatures. So like, gorilla centaur lizard was like a cool visual idea. Sassy goat man with robot friend was an idea. Lady with crazy weird fungus hyena was an idea. And then we have like some more like basic. We have like Pierce, he's a guy. He's just a guy. He's a handsome guy, but he's a guy. And then Mandarax is kind of like our poster child for it being sci-fi and Western. He's got like a sirapa on. He's big cowboy hat, and he's like this. Why don't you talk about Mandarax? He's your baby. He's my
little buddy. He's his story is that he's like he's a droid, or like what we call a pod. And he's on a journey of self-invention. He's been recently given like administrative access to his core functions, and he's trying to decide how he should write them. So he's going around. He's here in this world following another droid, another pod that has gone on a similar journey, and he's trying to kind of get the answers to his questions. So every time Mandrax makes a choice in his branching narrative, he's going to get another part of his little core program, which is it's like a gear card. You can kind of use that and do something with that. So the big part of the inspiration there was just data from from Star Trek. Just like the not quite Pinocchio style, but like really looking to like make the right choices to be the best person that he can. And I feel like honestly, among all these characters, like Mandrax has the most human story.
Yeah, he's got the most humanity for sure, I think. Yeah. And then we have like the hero. Oh, the elbow! I'm doing the elbow. Everyone, you guys don't like this.
that elbow's weird.
I don't like this elbow. So Pierce was another character we had. So what's Pierce's story?
Pierce he was born and raised on Theria. He's one of the few local characters. His parents had worked for the Imperiad. They were geologists, and they saw the end coming here. They realized that they were kind of out of resources. And they kind of pulled up their resources. They sent him off world, and they said just pursue a better life. So instead of doing that, he kind of went around. He got some tactical training, and now he has this item called the terraforming seed, which is this super rare, like super expensive sort of thing. Like it takes a long time to make and refine. And he wants to bring it back to Theria so that he can put this in right near the planet's core and regrow Theria into a garden world. So he's come back home at great expense, at great cost, and he's trying to basically save his world.
Yeah,
but there's certain challenges that come with that.
Well, it's cool because he's one of the only like natives of this world, right? And he got out.
Yeah.
He got out. He didn't have to turn back. He didn't have to come back to the hardships of this world, and he's done so at great risk in order to do what he thinks is the right thing, which is cool. And like his whole he has to kind of run around a lot because he's working with kind of unreliable people, so he's having to do a lot of the heavy lifting. And then we have one other character, which is Zoda. Zoda is in my mind, she was kind of a Boba Fett type character. She's kind of a your description of her. She's a fixer. So she's a person who works with the. She's got good standing with the factions on the planet, and she's like leveraged her relationship there. So she's already been here for a little while. So all the other characters are just kind of like when you start the game, the ship has landed. You're stepping off, and it's like your first days. Zoda's already been here, and she's kind of read the ruins, and she's like, holy crap, this world is dying way faster than people realize, and she's got to get out of here. But unfortunately, going back to the core worlds isn't really an option for her because she's burned a lot of bridges. So it's almost like she has to figure out not only how to leave this world, which is a really, really hard thing to do, she has to find a place that she can go that will be safe for the choices that she's made within the context of the story and like before her story. And she's like, her and Pierce are like the two human characters. And we have some more like there's a lot of like NPCs in this game. There's things like bounties and encounters, and you'll see recurring. Like there's this little guy called Quidmonk who's like this little guy who owns like a little cart that he sells stuff from, but his the language he speaks isn't intelligible to most species. So he has a cipher cube, but it's broken, so it's just like you can only understand every other word he's saying. There's actually like a pretty rich and robust sense of culture in some of these, like the factions. There's 3 people within the faction, the cartel, and they're kind of all like infighting and positioning. They're all trying to screw each other over, so there's only one. The cultish Ebony, there's like, recurring characters, their leader, Blood Mother Ogath, who is mentioned all the time. We've got Gavels and Sanction that pop up. And
so here's a question for you. How many named characters do you think there are in this game?
So naming things is like one of my favorite things in the whole world. Like
he can't control himself.
I will literally think up names, and one thing that I do is like I like to kind of come up with impossible to pronounce things, and then like I like to watch my friends try to say them, and then like get hung up for a second. And we tone that down. We tone that down a lot because there was a point where it was just like, and we can't have that. But like. Some of the names are kind of like lyrical, like Melicantha and Ib. Like, I would watch that reality TV show. That sounds great. Solsirium Quell. How many named things? Hundreds. There are literally hundreds and hundreds. I mean, even these like personas, we've got like Gavel Throck, Gavel Fallacier, Gavel Udnar, Gavel Watagi, Gavel Imixmo, Gavel Keldsway. These guys.
You read them all.
I want to read them all. They're weird. Eyeless Ufir, Bulvork Blord. You ready? Osnoff the Clugger.
That's your favorite.
Omen, Zimzormazim.
Yep.
Vulture Head. Personal favorite.
Yeah. But it's not just in the cards either. It's just like there's also like all the story entries and like these characters that like one of the comments we really often get is that this world feels like it's very lived in, right? And I think a big part of that is the fact that we just have so many people living in it, right?
Well, and I think we made a decision because a lot of narrative games, I think they get a little scared of the length and depth of story. So it'll be kind of like, oh, you meet a guy and the guy says this and then you get $1.
Right.
Like we don't have that. Like it's like you meet a guy, the guy is really sad. The guy tells you about his family. The guy walks you into his house. The guy sits down. He feeds you a meal. He asks you what kind of meal you want. Make a decision. What do you want to eat right now?
So a little bit more exciting than that, actually.
Yeah. But it's like 2 guys instead of 1 guy. But no. So like we steered into the skid a lot. So like the idea is to be unapologetic in the storytelling, because if you want that narrative feeling, if you want that feeling of actual like emotional investment, it can't just be like it's really easy to make a character that's just a bunch of mechanisms that are fun, like a little internal system, right? It's another thing to say that this internal system feels like it's the thing that it's supposed to represent, and that those things are also telling a story, and they're giving a player agency. Like we want you to kind of like drop into the skin of the character and feel like you're the character and you're making those choices. And that's something we've seen when we've demoed the game, where people are like, I feel like I would. And then you'll start to even see the person kind of have like a little bit of an internal struggle where they're like, I would want to do this, but I think Grash would want to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do what Grash is directing my decisions within the game.
Yeah.
So I think that's an indicator that we've done a pretty good job at it.
Good job, Buzz.
Yeah.
So here's a question for you. We have the characters, we have the stories. We talked about playing the characters through, and you have your chapters, you have your branches and stuff. But like, is there really only just 1 or 2 ways to play a character? What happens when you've done their stories, Travis? Have we prepared for this in some way?
Yes, and it's a lot of work. And it was pointed out to us by a very wise individual who will remain unnamed. Yeah. Unnamed. I said unmaimed. Like yes, we also will not maim this person. So one of the things about this game is there is literally 130,000 words of story text in this. That for you, if those just sound like numbers to you, like what is that the equivalent of?
That's a mid-sized novel. Yeah. That's like a Michael Crichton novel.
Yeah, or a John Crichton novel, as you wrote in the script. Whoever that is.
That's the character from Farscape.
Oh, he's creeping into the real world.
I always mistake those two.
So in terms of like how you can play the game, so yes, you have your character, and your character has like finite a branch, right? But we also have a little model where you can play as a role in the game. So for example, you could play as like an assassin for this faction, and so it's character agnostic, right?
So you can just take it and you just plug it in from any character. And then that character plays with that story, and they make their own branching decisions again, and it has a different set of feats and objectives, and just the context changes depending on what character you're playing with.
So yeah, like for example, one of the character classes like artificial beings, right? Like like things that are engineered, or like things like Mandarax, things that were manufactured. So those characters kind of fall into like a category, a bucket of characters, and they'll have like a similar experience. But even some of the individual characters will have like some moments that might feel unique to them, and that's just a way that you can play the game so that you can get even more mileage out of it. Yeah. We understand that people want, like especially in the current market, in the world that we live in, like there's a lot of really cool games out there that offer just like an insane amount of replay. And while I think we've done like a really good job of adding like an insane amount of depth, we understand that people don't want to just play the same character once or twice. Like they're going to want to play that character a lot more times. So that's a way that we can do that. And what's interesting also about that is that it'll, like for example, there's like a faction sort of rule for each of these, which will give you a lot more insight into what it's like to be a part of that faction, like the culture of that faction, who's in charge of these factions, like who's calling the shots here, like who do you report to, who do you talk to, who are the people who make up those factions. So it's an opportunity to kind of dig a little deeper into some of the other elements in the game that we touch upon, but that it's unpredictable in terms of these encounter decks are crazy, and most of these encounters are like 2 encounters, right? So it's a lot. There's like literally thousands, 100+ thousand outcomes in some of these situations. I'm talking about other videos.
You're doing great. No.
Sorry.
But the main point is that like there's 6 different characters and there's like a dozen different ways to play them. Not only your basic story, but also the branches in there, and then every other story module that you can plug in. So, there's far more. I think in like a single session, you might see like 4% of all the stories that exist, and it's just like.
It's not even that too. Like we were demoing the game and I saw a young lady play Grash, and she was not playing fighty Grash, which is like the linear way. She was playing celebrity legend farming Grash. And I like
does whatever she wants.
Well, I was like watching her do it, and I'm like, "Is this what is happening? Like something new is happening." And it was like unexplored terrain, and it wasn't imbalanced. It wasn't scary. I just had never seen a person play this particular character who's just made to beat the hell out of everything, and she's running around interacting with the personas and doing jobs. It was like she was like mission Grash effectively, which was really cool. And even as the creators, like we played these characters over and over and over. We try to poke holes, we try to find weak points, and plug those up as we go along. So here's this person who's sitting down to play this game for the very first time, and she just wants to explore this character in a way that no one even thought to explore. Yeah. And I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, I mean it's a sandbox game, and you can do whatever you want. The story is just one of the options. So
yeah. I like that. That should be on the box.
Yeah. It's not going to be.
I'm doing elbow stuff again.
It's okay.
Sorry.
Don't. Should we high five for the end of the video?
Elbow high five.
We did it. Cool. Aye. Thanks.